Everyone hear us loud and clear. What's going on, Coach Paul?
I'm awake.
Good
Very
morning.
good morning. It was it turned out to be quite a slow day. Literally, um, trading around unchanged. How about you?
Yeah, it was a pretty slow day as well. I ended up pretty much scratch on the day. Lost 60 cents and locked up my account. Was up at a point, then went back down and said, you know what, I'm gonna just call it here. I kind of came into the day feeling like I didn't really want to trade that much, and it showed up in my executions. So instead of turning this into a negative day, well, it was a negative day, but I'm okay with losing 60 cents. I think I'll find that in the laundry
Did
somewhere. Uh, so
did you say 60 cents?
60 cents. 60 cents. So no gumballs for me today. I can't buy any of those, but I'll be okay with that loss. But welcome everyone to at the buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep Performance Coach for a little over a year now. Been trading for 11 years and in the futures markets for the past 5. And that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you, Coach Jay. My name is Coach Paul. I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades, starting on the trading floor and ending up in front of the screen. I have had many roles, um, but mostly as trading for the last 25 years. My goal is to help you lean on my experience to hopefully improve and become a profitable trader.
There we go. And thank you for that, Coach. Let's talk about the news. After yesterday, which was a very headline heavy day, we know we had news of the port strikes. We had escalations in the Middle East. Today was fairly quiet. We did have scheduled news. We had a unemployment change number come out a little bit better than expected. Forecast was 125,000. Actual was 143,000. Not much scheduled news. We did have Fed speakers pretty much throughout the day. Not any headline worthy comments from any of them really. But we do have news later in the week that's probably what the market is waiting for. We have jobless claims tomorrow. We have services PMI numbers coming out as well. Factory orders number out as well. And then on Friday, we have non farm payroll. So the market may be just waiting. We talked about it being a little bit slow today. Um, still some decent opportunity, but as far as headlines goes, pretty quiet on that front.
Yeah, pretty quiet. I don't. The actions from yesterday seem to have been hanging over like a dark cloud. No one
Right.
willing to really take too much risk um, in front of a possible news flash. Um, it was interesting though, as slow as that was, the yen had a very large move today.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll review that later,
All
but
right.
there was some fireworks there. Um,
Let's look at
so
let's look at the
begin.
top percentage movers for the day. There are about 35 different markets we can trade with top step accounts. Not all just NASDAQ ES. But to the downside, we have the Ultra bonds down 0.81%. Japanese yen, like Coach Paul just mentioned, down 1.88%. And soybean meal down 2.16% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we have platinum up 1.94%. Anybody remember that from the scouting report?
Yeah, I
Uh,
was just gonna say someone pointed it out yesterday.
Right. Wheat up 2.38% and lean hogs up 2.82% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. Uh, and just with that, anytime we mention anything on this segment, it's for educational purposes only, not a suggestion to take a trade in any direction. When we do that scouting report segment, it's just a market that Coach Paul and I are both looking at for potential opportunity. Um, And I remind myself all the time, hey, when you say something, take notes and actually take the trade, right? Platinum was on the top of my scouting report yesterday. Asked me if I traded platinum today. I didn't. I'm a human as well, guys. And sometimes I
You could have
actually go ahead, coach.
you could have made another 60 cents.
I could have made 60 cents. Could have made a dollar maybe. Maybe a couple dollars.
Yeah.
It depends. But again, I didn't feel like executing too much today. So we have those type of days. Saw some trades, took some setups, but was aware that hey, I may not be executing at my best. Better to just lock it up, and we'll try it again tomorrow. But if anyone took that platinum trade or took a trade in platinum, let me know in the chat. Wayne Michael says, really enjoy your channel with all the traders. First time here. Wayne, thank you for joining us. First time viewer. Do we have any other first time viewers in the chat? If you're new here, let us know. Let us know where you're from. It's always good to hear and see when we have new people joining. And we will get right into the charts. Coach, I have a 30-minute NASDAQ chart up. I'm going to pull up your moving averages and we'll get right into it. Give me 1 second. Let me fix this here. Just make these lines a little bit bigger. There we go. That looks better.
Well, you're quick. All
All
right.
right.
Well, we're still under the 200 bar moving average on the half-hour chart. All of that came from yesterday's missiles in the Middle East. We did get above the 20, and the 20 and the 50 have crossed, so definitely some short covering. But that move from high to low of yesterday, I think we're right at 50%. So we're in balance.
There you go. Yep. Right at
Yeah, kind
50%.
of like 50%. Be interesting going forward, looking to see if we cross the 200 and across that 50%. On light volume, what the low was made in the first half an hour, I believe.
First
So let's
half an hour.
frame that half. Yeah, let's frame that out.
All right. So gonna take these drawings off for a second. And where that 50% line Coach Paul was just talking about of yesterday's down move is right around 20,075. We have the Globex session opening range right here. That's the first 30 minutes when the market opens for trade in the evening or the morning, depending on where you are in the world. If we anchor a view up there, pretty consolidated range bound day. And again, this presents opportunity to you. But if you're using that 30-minute range, uh, and on a higher volume time, coach, when we go to the session open, right? New York session open, I'm usually going down to a 3-minute because there's more volume. But in the overnight, I like this 30-minute because uh, it's
There's less
going to
volume.
take less volume. It's going to take a little bit longer, and they just did not move the market in either direction. Like you said, that headline risk and the possibility of escalations. Not really seeing any market participants wanting to put size on. We talked yesterday about this 30-minute candle when we got the news being the largest 30-minute volume candle that we saw in over a month. Today's volume was, what'd you say, coach? It was like in the
It was
low.
in a
Go ahead.
in the last hour. It was in the for the last, I think, 1,000 half hours. It was in the 10% area of volume. Was was almost like a night session as far as volume was concerned.
Right. Yeah, pretty quiet session outside of this little sell-off that we had here. Um, I like what
But
this looks
look
like.
at that
Go ahead.
that first half an hour. I mean, that's classic contained action.
Yeah,
Uh, we just we wicked at the highs and lows, and what did VWAP do?
stayed right
Stayed
in the
in the
middle.
middle until late today, um, and it still didn't leave that first half an hour. That that's witness to what um, kind of day it was.
Right. We did also have this major, 20,000 level that's right here as well. these whole number levels are always going to be levels of contention for the NASDAQ or really any market that we're trading. But 20,000 being such a whole number level, uh, it is, uh, we're going to see a lot of chop around here unless the market decides to be decisive. And we just didn't really get that today. I'll go down to a shorter time frame and we'll go into the New York session.
Well, you know what's interesting
Hmm.
is that did we get on those lows? Did we get a? Oh, this is the 3 minute on a half an hour low. I think we got a J trade.
Let's look at it. So here is the first 3 minute candle. Really nice sell early on. This was probably the most exciting move of of the day, where we got what was this, from the low of the opening range to that low, an 80-point move in a short order. Uh, Turned around, made the low for the day. This candle here, that was, and this is 3 minute candles, depending on what time frame you use, is going to be a little different. But these two candles here that made the low, and the very next one, the high of this range was 19,928. That was the highest volume of the day outside of the open. Right here, turned us around, highest volume outside of the day. Market was pretty much done at that point, as far as uh, decision making, volume pushing in either direction. But then just a really nice float up here. Uh, let's see. Go back to the 30-minute chart, and you talking about the J trade.
On the lows this today,
Mhm.
you have the volume, large volume spot. I mean, the largest volume event
Yep. Yep.
had buying against it, and then when we broke that high,
Mhm.
we really
Didn't
we
come.
violently went unchanged.
Yep.
Um, but it did not break. I mean, it was a low level risk trade relatively,
Mhm.
but not without much reward. But that that can be the reason was there was no volume to ignite it further.
Right. Right. Targets down here, obviously yesterday's low, on this push, on this initial push, reasonable to think, hey, we could take out that low. But when we didn't, we see the selling get absorbed or slow down there. We get a really nice push up in the opposite direction. Uh, I would be looking at somewhat, the completion of this retracement of this move, right? If we start to see volume kind of build above this 20,000, do we get a full retracement of these move back up to 20,300s? Maybe even tonight, right? I'll be on slow markets with Dakota tonight, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? Where this could just be a slower kind of accumulation day, and we get a push going into some of the news that we have later on in the week, because there does look like there's some potential upside in this move. But of course, I'm going to wait until volume tells me what they think. Outside of
Yeah, and
that,
they didn't really say much today, did they?
did not say much at all. Outside of that, pretty choppy. Again, rejecting at this 50% area of the move down yesterday. Gave a really nice opportunity to take a short here. Uh, I know a couple of traders in the chat did say that they caught these shorts, kind of just seeing the supply area up here. It's
Nice.
a good way to look at it, right? This 50%, we look at, 50% retracements all the time, equilibrium, identifying ranges. We do it on high volume candles, but if you did it, like you said, coach, here, this move down was just a high volume daily candle. We see in the session yesterday, we rejected right at that 50% as well, and it's still holding. So, really nice area to look. Again, the markets are fractal. You can apply drawings on really any time frame and see the same patterns. And here we're kind of just seeing it on a daily pattern, daily time frame.
Yeah, good point. I mean that we really have done nothing since that news.
Right.
I think tonight we could see some action. I mean, if the further away from that news, the more emboldened the buyers will be.
Right. Right.
Um, so
Sean asked, "Do I use trend lines?" I personally don't use trend lines. Coach, do you use trend lines?
I used to use them all the time. I still use them occasionally for a longer term trend. They're valuable. Um, but it, I stopped using them. I myself like to measure movement with moving averages. It just works better with me and with volume. But daily, yeah, trend line. Even on whatever um, time frame you're in.
Hmm.
s- So, one thing that you can add to it is volume, because a trend line that can be broken, that's a great trend line. Now we take the trend line from the top, but that's good to see in retrospect. But looking at this, there you go. What do we have there? A pennant, and that was a great. Uh, these things, I mean, they're great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've used them. I don't use them. I use them on my dailies more than I do in the short term. But yeah, the trend lines are great. And maybe we'll bring it up a little bit more. Um, so great question.
yeah.
Uh, if
If we talk about
we
trend lines,
look,
coach, I'm gonna pass that one to you. You know, I don't use them at all. I would draw a trend line like this and then try to figure out why it doesn't work. So yeah, trend lines are
so
my things, guys. I
uh,
draw boxes and use VWAP as my trend line.
so one thing about trend lines is the highest high and highest low start there on the
Hmm.
chart. So if we squeeze that chart, we're going to find another trend line. But if you're trading the trend line, you have to remain with that same line that you got in with.
Makes sense.
Um, and now let's put a moving average with that trend line to see if, let's look at the, you know,
And we are
so
looking at a daily chart right here.
yeah. So yeah, now, oh, well, look, we have a different trend line from the highest high. And these are important trend lines. That's all-time high. And now the next one we move is the next highest high. Now, if we went to the previous highest high, we broke that trend to continue up. So that once that trend is broken, you eliminate it,
Makes sense.
and now you use the next high, so you would move it up. Now, yeah, I love them. I used to use Gann lines with that too. Some of the keys of good trend lines are that they move at a 45-degree angle.
Got you. Sean, yes, coach did mention that he would consider that a pennant and then on that breakout. Um, but good stuff there, coach. Thank you for that. I know a bunch of traders use them. There are as many ways to look at a market as there are traders. So if trend lines make sense to you, use them. They have never made sense to me. I admit probably because I'm terrible at placing them. Uh, so that's a
Uh,
class that I would take if anyone's willing to give one.
uh,
Let's move on to the ES.
Also, I have a I have boxes of trend lines done by hand on chart books.
Okay.
Maybe I'll share it sometime. One good thing about doing it by hand is that there's a different connection with your hand to your brain. So I knew levels a lot better than it's not just looking at them. You write them out and you know them. So yeah, maybe I think I shall. I'll do a class on Discord on trend lines.
Nice. Uh, ES pretty much the same story. We have this 30-minute opening range. VWAP never left the range for the day. We did take out the overnight low. Sorry, not overnight low. Yesterday's low on this spike move down, but very similar pattern to the Nasdaq on this move. Highest 30-minute volume of the day. and we just pop back up and kind of consolidate again in 50% of, or not even, we didn't hit 50% of yesterday's range. Pretty close to it. What I would be looking for is this imbalance, this sell side imbalance to fill, and specifically this large candle that was the news. So 57.83 is 50% of that news candle. I would be looking for that to potentially close going into tomorrow. And if we, let me clear this up. If we anchor VWAP to that, and again, why am I anchoring it here? Just because it was a high volume event, we settled above the VWAP from that. So as long as this acts as a support, 57.60, I'd be looking for buyers to kind of come in and close this imbalance here.
You know, it's great on that using VWAP. What did VWAP do? Look at the shape of that all day. It didn't.
Flat
It
line.
was flat.
Yep.
So let's go through the function of that. For it to move, volume has to be moving price,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Otherwise, it doesn't move. So there is a, I, I mean, that's classic. We moved away from VWAP to the downside, couldn't find any volume, snapped right back, went above VWAP, couldn't find any volume, and collapsed right back.
Yep.
Now that you can say that's hindsight, but it's something to recognize. The deeper you get into the day, and the more you see VWAP flat, the more information, unless some news event comes, that there's no there's no direction. It's
Yep.
I mean, that's just classic.
Yeah, even on this move here, where it looks like, yeah, we could continue to sell off, and there was potentially some room lower. I know we did trade into, this was the FOMC candle. I'm gonna go back because the market does not forget price. Here is the 30-minute FOMC candle. I'm pretty sure we traded right into this. Yeah, there we go. Not exactly to 50% of it, but we traded into it. We've seen how many times the market has rejected these prices. And I believe we talked about this yesterday as well, where, this sell off happened into these prices, regardless of what the news was. The market is holding these prices. Buyers are stepping up here. And they did it again today, where if you take out what happened for the rest of the session, it looked like it was going to be volatile and continue to sell off. But like you said, coach, that VWAP is a flat line, and we've mentioned it a couple times already. When VWAP is flat like this, any extensions away from it where volume doesn't follow, it's giving us a pretty good opportunity to take a trade back up to the VWAP at least. Uh, Anything else on the equities before we move on, coach?
Um, no, that's it. Let's going into tomorrow, recognize that even tomorrow there'll be shyness to take any big positions.
Hmm.
Um, it, but just recognize that and protect your bottom line.
Yep. Got a question in here from Bradley, DC. Any advice on how to remain objective and not biased to your trade thesis when the market is in opposition to your trade idea? Killed tons of time today waiting on a dud. What do you say to that, coach?
Did you kill time or kill your account?
Great question. Great
If
question.
you kill time and here, if you're a directional trader, I'm a directional trader. I don't make money and I lose money on days like today. I lose less now using VWAP. Um, so, but killing time, I mean, if you, there's days where I'm going to use it. It's an old saying is even a skunk couldn't make a cent. This is
I
one
couldn't
of
make
those.
60 cents today.
You have 60 cents, you lost six. I would take that and frame that, that on a statement. That's hard to do. I bet you can't get inside of that 60 cents
Yeah,
again in your
I don't want
life.
to try. I don't want to try.
But another philosophy is scratch is a win. So if you can get through today and you scratched, you took what the market made available. We'll say that again. So we didn't go anywhere. There was no volume. So if you can trade into a scratch, you followed what the market did. Well, that's an accomplishment. Now, the other side of that coin, he says, remain objective and not biased to your trade thesis when the market is in opposition to your trade idea. Uh, That's that's a great question. So you entered that trade and you had your thesis or your plan. And now you got to execute your plan. And more times than not, your thesis or your plan is going to be challenged. When that happens, you're under pressure, right?
Yep.
If you play sports, if you run a business in life, there are times when you're under pressure. And what does that mean? I don't really, no one really enjoys that pressure, but to get control of your decision making under pressure before you make that trade, you have to define the risk and accept it. And you get better at that. If you don't accept that risk and don't have it framed out before you get in, guess what that pressure is going to do? It's going to be exacerbated. Oh, this
Yep.
thing could just, you don't have a stop in at any moment. Oh, yesterday, you could have bought it before the open. No stop. It's going against you a little bit. You don't have a stop in and you didn't put your risk and you freeze. And 5 minutes later, you're down half your account. All right. You didn't. So going back, you entered a trade where you didn't have the risk defined and you didn't accept it. I mean, it comes down to that. So
Yep. What
if
I would
you're,
say, go ahead, finish that,
yeah,
coach.
go ahead. If you're really comfortable and you saw it and you framed out the risk, then that's it.
Yep.
Let it go.
Yeah. And when you say the market is in opposition to your trade idea, what I try to remind myself all the time is that the market doesn't care what I want. Um, and it's going to do whatever it needs to, right? So if a market is just rallying to the upside and for whatever reason my trade thesis says there should be a short, I have to remind myself that just because I think it's a short doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen in the market. And if I'm going to take a short, then I have to assess where a short opportunity fits in the market. Think about Dakota when he made 100 grand in a week buying a market that was nosediving, right? The market completely disagreed with his trade thesis. He could have just said, "Hey, I'm going to buy it at every place that I feel like buying it," and maybe lost 100 grand. Or I'm going to try to find in this opposition where my thesis fits. And being honest about that thesis, right? I've caught myself in counter trend trades all the time. And the conversation goes, hey, you're counter trend. Don't look for too much, right? Or how much can you actually expect out of this trade? And not just because I think it's a short, every trade is going to be a 500-point trade in my favor. If I do that, then that's not a thesis. That's not a full thesis, right? That's me just wanting something, right? I have to be honest about where that thesis fits in the market. And if it aligns, that's when we hit some of those big trades. If it doesn't, that's when you take what the counter trend opportunity presents to you and then you find another trade idea.
Great example, coach.
His
Uh,
Royal says you must adapt to the market. The market will never adapt to you. Never. Never once. Has that ever happened for you, coach?
Adapt to me? Yes, it does. It punished me for not respecting it.
Yeah. Right.
It lets me
Market
know
will find a
immediately.
new way to make you respect rules and things like that. Um, yeah, especially these markets that we're trading. I've seen markets, small caps, adapt to some of the traders that I've learned from, but they had accounts big enough to move those small caps around. But where the big boys are playing, no, it's identify what the flow is, and if your trade thesis is against that flow, then find your opportunities and be quick about them.
All right.
All
I hope
right.
that helps.
Let's go to crude oil. Crude had this nice rally yesterday. Uh, we are on a 30-minute chart here, coach. I'm going to pull up the moving averages and back above the 200. Obviously, with this spike yesterday, the 20 and the 50 above it as well. And let's look at this range, 50% of this range. We haven't really closed that, but excuse me, accepting back inside this range a little bit today. We didn't make an extension. High of the day in crude 72.49. And if we zoom out, it's kind of a higher time frame resistance level
It
that we
looks,
bounce off of.
there we go. Waves. It looks like a ocean, look at that 200 moving up and down, up.
Yep.
See if it catches up and goes back down. It had a nice break today. It's kind of the opposite, which would make sense with the news of what the equities did today. Once again, with every day it goes by without some dramatic headline, it's going to calm down.
Hmm.
And we saw that break. Classic. There's the 20. We hugged it all the way up. And once we broke through it, someone someone was looking at that.
Yep.
Now, this is the half hour. So, yeah, the short covering, I mean, long liquidation in a hurry came right back to 50% of that. And we're sitting at the 20. I'd like to see the volume, today's volume, VWAP, from
Uh,
last night's open.
so let's look at it. I'm gonna take these drawings off, we'll take the moving averages off, and we will find last night's open right here in crude. And again, this is a 30-minute range. As
Wow,
tight
that's
as
a
that
tiny
range,
range.
yeah. And what's funny is I don't think VWAP left that range. Uh, not until late. London.
Okay,
Something's going on in
probably
London.
Europe. London bought it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. This
Might
gets
have
so
to
old. Yeah.
might have to wake up and trade London session just for oil. Because that's not the first time we've seen that happen this week. Where we had the same exact move yesterday. Uh, we had session open. London comes in and chooses a direction. Interesting.
In a hurry. And yeah. So tonight, London's calling for crude oil. But here, let's look at a trend line from the bottom and connect that.
Let me draw these damn trend lines. Here we go. Uh,
So draw it to that one is a sharp. Look at the angle of that.
mhm.
That's over 45. That's hard to sustain.
Okay.
So now we get the new trend line to these current low, the latest lows. And now that's a little over a 45-degree angle, and that's healthy. It just when you do it like that, it's over 45-degree angle. So what does that mean? 1 unit of time to 1 unit of price would equal a 45-degree angle if they were going up.
Mm.
So that's a true trend line. So look at volume. VWAP is staying above that trend line. Um, Maybe VWAP with a trend line, it can be something.
Maybe. And we're getting some questions. How come you didn't draw it this way? When you zoom out the chart, doesn't it
There's
change the angle? Uh, this is why I don't use them. Personally, this is why I don't use them because there's a lot of which is fine, right?
it's
Just
there's a lot of subjectivity to it.
exactly.
But in this chart, the lowest low
Hmm.
and the highest high, In this case, the lowest low is the trend that we're moving on.
Yep.
So without getting too far into it, like I said, the 45-degree angle, you do it on yours, but these are the principles. And trend lines are very subjective. That's why I don't make big decisions on them.
Mm,
But on a daily and the larger time frames, they're very, very important.
right. I mean, if we're going with this trend line, crude looks like it's trending up, right? Um,
Mhm.
with this one here, as long as it holds, I will be watching crude tonight as well. Maybe not so much in the Asian session, but if I'm awake during that London session, seeing if this volume still kicks up and presents an opportunity to us. We did reject at that 72.50 area, uh, which was a higher time frame resistance. If I look at the session open for crude oil, which is at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and attach a VWAP to that. We did have crude inventories out today as well, and the real move came after the inventories. So we're gonna do. Go ahead, coach.
Boy, that was a classic. Once it broke under that range,
Hmm.
failed VWAP. I mean, it tried to get over it a couple times.
Yep.
It did get over it, but even with that, it, you buy it and you wait for it to close under. All right. So if it closes above it, buy it. Closes under, and while that's not didn't make money, guess what? You didn't take that $2 beating.
Right.
So that in effect is limiting your losses. Cut your losses. If you look to sell it, okay, the first time it went under VWAP, okay, a loss. And then another loss, small loss. And then one more time, if you're framing your risk out, let's say if you have $5,000 and you're not going to lose more than 600, you could have made that trade under $100 three times and then caught the eventual break. So we don't talk about that kind of strategy a
Hmm.
lot, but if you're just trying to get on a trend, it's probably you limit your risk. Try it. But on this one, that look if we push that chart back to the right so you don't see it, the result. Well, let's look at this perspective. I want to ask you right now, what does it? Do you want to buy that? Let's get. Well, we know the answer, so that looks really good.
Right.
If you're long, feeling good. And then we go slowly. So when you go slowly, go forward. And this is how you learn. And if you do this by hand and write down the trades, you will get into a rhythm. It's like form shooting. It's just slow, deliberative process. Do this in your practice account. Um, Here we go. Oh, now it got under VWAP. I'm out. Let's just say I'm trading VWAP. I'm out. If I bought it above VWAP, sold it out, I got a decent winner. It was bigger at one time. All right. So I buy it again and get that sharp and then a small loss. I buy it again, a small loss. I might be even on the day.
Right.
But now this is the important. Those are small losses or a scratch. Maybe you only lost 60 cents. And then You stop buying it not because you thought it was a good buy, but the market didn't want it. I don't want it. Those are So what if, in effect, have you done? If you go through that process, you've cut your losses, small losses.
Yep. It's what we want to do, right? We don't know whether or not the trade that we put on is going to be a big winner, big loser. We don't know, right? But we can define where I'm going to say this idea is invalidated, right? And I've heard people say, don't even look at it at a loss. It's a cost of you're paying for information, right? Paying for information to see whether or not the market is going to go in that direction. You get to decide how much you want to pay for that information. Do you want to pay your entire account? Do you want to pay with all of the time that you put in to build that account? Doesn't sound like a great decision to make for a one-time trade, right? If we think about it that way, I'm paying for information. I built up my Top Step combine to $8,000, and I need another thousand to win it. But I am putting all of that processing power, the thought process, all of the days that I put into that, I'm putting it into one trade, and this is either going to get me across the finish line or it's going to blow the account. That's just not great account management, right? Pay with a portion of what you've built, right? Coach, you say 12% of your account.
Yeah. In one
Well,
day.
in one day, not just one trade, right? Because
Doesn't mean you have to get there.
right,
But when you do, uh,
that's when you call it.
that's when you call it.
Yep. Yeah, Pete says that is gambling. 100%. 100%. I took losses today and just like, okay, that's just it's paying for information. Could have let those losses ruin the entire day, but there were a loss followed by a win, followed by another win, followed by a loss. It's just all information. And at the end of the day, managing the account is the big part of it. And that's why you see me locked out here for 60 cents because I could have gone on tilt, but was going to manage that. We did have inventories come out at 9:30 Central Time, and you guys know that I like to kind of mark out this news candle. Here we're going to do it on the crude inventory report. Actually, don't even know what the report came out as. Doesn't matter too much from the technical perspective, but if let's say we are a crude trader and we're not going to trade prior to inventories coming out. Once inventories comes out, I don't want to have a position going into it, but inventories comes out, I anchor a view up there, and now this is a better trade. A lot of times when I realize it's crude inventory day, I'm just not going to trade before this candle. If I'm looking to trade crude, because hopefully I get a move like this, and if I don't, and view up stays in the middle of this range, then I'm okay. But if I ignore all of that chop in the beginning of the day because the rest of the market's probably waiting for the inventories as well and doesn't want to be directionally positioned, then I don't either. But once they print, we establish where the extremes of that inventory range are 71.66 at the low, 72.03 at the high. Can anchor a view up there, and we see it the same way, right? Not in a trade yet. Not in a trade yet. Thinking about a trade because VWAP is at the low of the range, but still not in one yet if we're going with the A plus. But now, once this VWAP leaves the range, I have some type of confirmation that the market is trying to go in a direction. Now, it's up to me to identify good trade location to get in here because, yes, did we sell off $2? We did. But at this time, do I know that there's potential for that? If I zoom out and look to the left, right, I could set some expectations, but I don't know what the market is going to do. Uh, and
I'll
it
repeat
sells.
that, coach. You don't know, right?
No, no idea. I could have a high probability assumption about what's going to happen, but high probability, whether it could be 99.9%, there's still that 0.1% of the chance that it doesn't do that, right? So have to trade accordingly, have to manage risk accordingly. But yeah, once that VWAP left the range from inventories, really nice sell off. And this is interesting. So someone was talking about this spike of volume late. Obviously, this spike of volume here is the close for crude, where we usually get this volume spike. Um, but with these markets, we haven't talked about this in a little while, but with these markets with crude and gold, the floor close is a little bit earlier than we have to be out of trades. So you're likely not going to see a ton of volume after 1:30 Central Time in crude oil, but it's a pretty nice trade here.
That was a really nice trade. It was a nice cover if you were short.
Right.
Um, why was it to me? It's because that VWAP, if you're short from the opening, and that was a great trade, what does that tell us? Oh, and there's the volume spike, the big buy
Yeah, that's
of
on the
volume.
close. That's on the close.
Yeah. So what is that saying? So that was that the biggest volume of the day?
It was. Yep.
What was a small candle, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty tight range. It was a 15 tick range.
So that kind of volume got absorbed on that small of a candle.
Hmm.
That think about that. That's balance.
Yep.
It means there was buyers and sellers could meet. There was no movement. Wow. Look at how we move out of that. That's great. That's a great chart, coach,
Yep.
because even just out of that, well, you're getting information. Whoever, whatever buying was, it stopped. It hasn't been lower since that high volume buy.
Yeah. Uh, S&P 500 as is that telling us that people aren't holding long term? Uh, I don't know that it's telling us that. Maybe it could be right that maybe people aren't holding this short, right? They may be covering this
Yeah.
short if you're a day trader for the day. Go ahead, coach.
Or hedging.
Right.
Hey, yesterday before the big rally, some because remember, don't think just like traders. Think what commercials are going to do. If
Right.
you were all of a sudden you didn't have a hedge and you were an end user of crude oil, which is all of us, by the way, um, and you got this chance, and it kind of goes waiting for it to come to your price and go, well, it didn't, but I can't go an overnight with that risk because it's still there, right? I mean, you want to still remain unhedged, and you still witnessed what happened in April. Was that April or May when the first missiles went to Iran?
Right.
Um, so that smells to me like there was commercial buying, and a balanced market. Look at that's. I mean, of course, that's the close.
Hmm.
So it didn't move. That candle didn't move, but it absorbed all that volume.
Right.
So if we imagine what the DOM looked like, that's
Uh,
probably level two. It was there was buyers and sellers.
Yeah, normally what the DOM looks like on that crude close, I've looked at it a couple times. There's usually like a 500 lot on the bid and on the offer, and they both get filled in short period of time on that close, right? Market on close orders. You see some size get out there. Everyone gets filled, ideally in a pretty tight range. Um, but yeah,
Mm.
ton of volume there, and for whatever it is, I see some questions. Is that a natural buyer and seller being matched at MOC? That's probably what it is. Regardless, we don't really need to me, in my opinion, we don't need to know the intentions of this market participant because there are a ton of different scenarios we could try to make up. And like you said, coach, a hedge makes a ton of sense. Um, they executed their business at these prices. That's what I'm taking from it. Right. So when the
Yeah,
market
on the close.
Yep. On the close. So when the market revisits those prices, so from the time they executed this business, buyers have been in control. When the market, if and when the market revisits these prices, I know the last time buyers were in control. I want to think, are these buyers still here or do they let the market go? We're right at that $70 level and then potentially sell off from there. Uh,
Good catch.
all right. We didn't go over gold. Let's go to the 30-minute on gold. And here is our 30-minute opening range from the session open last night. This is the one market where we did see VWAP leave pretty early. And when this happens, we've seen this happen so many times, uh, kind of making the extreme of the session where we did on this spike here make a new high, but that wasn't a very convincing high, right? And look at where VWAP was at the time of this spike.
So it was a knee-jerk buy.
Yep. Yeah, I don't.
Or
Was there news at 10 a.m. Eastern? Fed
yeah, gold
speakers.
was making new highs.
Fed speaker, but I don't see that being a reaction to anything specifically. But it doesn't need to be, right? Some volume came in, pushed the market back up to this range. This range held, and a really nice opportunity. I saw someone mention they were getting chopped up in the Nasdaq while crude oil was moving, or maybe gold was doing this. If you're getting chopped up in the market, and again, I would suggest this to someone who's pretty confident in their trading, and you have a strategy that you can apply to any market, right? A technical way to look at the markets. Maybe don't just jump to another market and trade it, but if the Nasdaq or whatever market that you're trading doesn't present a great opportunity to you, it's okay not to trade, right? Maybe pull up another chart for a different market and see if that presents an opportunity to you. Trade it in a practice account and just be aware, coach, we talk about it all the time. There's opportunity in other places. And it doesn't have to be in the Nasdaq. I know how much we hear about it, and that's okay. But we talk about 4 different markets at the least every day on this segment, right? So your trades can come from other places. And if you're struggling with the Nasdaq, I don't recall who said it. Um, it was Chris. Chris, I trade NQ because I'm in a big hurry and I'm not getting anywhere.
Sounds like an old Talking Head song. Um, a great observation. Another one is spinning your wheels,
Hmm.
or and that creates the need. First of all, it creates a lot of FOMO. It's almost like you feel you have to get in now. And then when
Right.
you get, this classic example, you're in, and then you think about where you are. Like, oh, how much am I willing to lose? Well, it's supposed to be good, so I'll stay with it. That's, to me, when I hear that, it's not going anywhere, or you're being hurried.
Hmm.
Okay, you want to be quick. You don't want to hurry. So
Yeah.
that was a great observation. You described it perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be in a hurry. Just you've already identified it's not worth it to you. So just slow down. Trade micros. You could be in a hurry for 6 months and be in the same place. Uh, and just the question, where do I anchor VWAP? This one is anchored to the session open, so I really don't even need to do this. I could just use the session VWAP and it shows me the same thing. But all of my anchors are going to go in the same places. First, they're going to be session opens, right? So this is 5 p.m. Central Time last night, and then high volume events, right? Or what look like highs and lows. This made a high for the day. I, I don't know it's the high until it starts to turn, but then once I anchor there, it starts to hold. Same thing, this high volume event here, 11:06 Eastern Time, anchoring one there and going from there. Right? There's no right or wrong answer, guys. Use your discretion, just like trend lines. Use your discretion, but uh, some guidelines I would use high volume or some type of news event for your anchors. But play around with it. Some of the the to me the best part of trading is that there is no right answer. I don't care what anyone tells you. There is no right way to look at the markets. It's what can you do consistently and identify a pattern in it. Um, I told you, coach, my younger brother started trading, and we were
Hmm.
looking at he was looking at trading crude oil. So he started anchoring VWAP and framing out the 3 minute opening range for 9:30 Eastern time instead of 9. And I told him, it was like, hey, wait, crude oil opens at 9. And he's like, well, when I do it at 9:30, I see this pattern. said, okay, great. Keep doing it at 9:30. Don't listen to me. I don't care what I
So
say. Do whatever you want to. If you've identified a pattern, you might see something that I haven't seen. There is some exploration that needs to happen here, and I think sometimes it happens all the time where you get a question. It's just like, hey, do you have a video on how to do that? Do you have a document that I can read on doing this? Go with the idea that this is just a concept, and you get to explore a little bit for yourself. And I think it helps learn a concept a little bit better.
bingo. And we've said it before. There's the concepts. There's plenty of them. But the one thread that goes amongst them is principle.
Mhm.
Is you have to execute it. I couldn't execute Coach J's method. He probably couldn't execute mine and be
Nope.
comfortable.
Right.
So part of the big part of the process is observing, seeing what works for you, what you're comfortable with, and developing a plan. If we were all the same,
Market wouldn't move.
wouldn't move. Literally.
it,
Wow.
it not move. That this is platinum. I
There was
just
a couple.
needed to look at it.
See, there is the platinum too. They have to make it hard.
Yeah. Yep. This here.
Yep. And interesting. Would that be if you bought it on the breakout? We'll just say you bought it on the opening
This
and took
here.
280 out, just on right away without even
Okay.
because you wanted to own it,
I did.
right? So this is aggressive. So what's my risk?
Two
Well,
ATRs on a 30-minute.
hmm
That would be 7 points.
so it's 14, $700. Or if I do one ATR, let's do both. So one is $7, the other is 14.
No, no, no. So the 30-minute ATR was 3.5. So two
Oh,
would be
so it's
seven.
7. Wow.
They would have. It depends on where that entry was.
It you're it's a whisker.
Yep.
See, platinum. That's one that you're better off letting it come to you a little, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even look at the VWAP. It it kind of wiggles.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I may have been in the trade. Right. If I was looking at this last night, I probably would have bought on this break and retest the VWAP. I may have bought here. Right. So I had a trade that was, one ATR in my favor before we turned around and would have just gotten stopped out. Would have just gotten stopped out.
Yep. And then been or if you got stopped out, what was that? $7?
Hmm.
$350 loss. So
Coach, we have a
if
VIP in the
you're
room. Ladies and
well,
gentlemen, Miss Danielle Oliver is here. Welcome, Danielle. Thank you for joining us. Clap it up for
um,
Danielle. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead,
but,
Coach. Keep going.
but that part, if you lost 350 and your risk budget was 250, 10-12% of your account, you can't you're out already at 250. You couldn't afford to take that trade.
Right.
If it was 600, could you afford to take that trade again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So um I don't think we see this enough as risk management is in the process of what that really means. How much, it's one thing to say I can't, half of my account, the DLL, daily loss limit, which gives you way too much room. Um, then you start, then you have the problem of trying to chase the loss. But if you have a tendency, which most of us do, of okay, I got to get that one back. Um,
Yeah,
Managing your budget of risk per day and understanding that is going to help bring that in rain because I can see it. That is the definition of tilt.
100%. 100%. We got about 2 minutes here. We're gonna do a little
No
rapid
problem.
fire here. We got a couple of questions. If anyone has any other questions, put them in the chat. Andrew is going to grab those for us. And Andrew, thank you as always for doing that. Question from George Williams: Can you show me how to create volume bars? Example instead of ticks or minutes. Um, I think you're just talking about this volume indicator here. So I just went to indicators and pull up volume from there. If you're talking about the volume bars like TradingView has, we don't have those available on TopStep X currently, but maybe that's something that is going to be added in the future. Kurt, in the early session, do you put on smaller size and raise your size during the session while getting into the zone? Uh, it depends. It depends. I have taken, and coach, I want you to answer this one too. Uh, the max size I try to use on a position is 3 minis in these accounts. There are some trades where it sets up right away, first 6 minutes of the day, and it's hey, take this trade, and I'll take it with 3 contracts. Right. It depends really on the setup and not so much the time of day. I do get what you're saying though, as far as getting in the flow of the market before you start to size up. Um, and if that's what it takes, right? Just get a couple, right? Like what was it, the gladiator when he smells the dirt before he starts to fight, right? Where you just like you it's like, okay, where am I? Smell the dirt a little bit, put on a micro and say, "Oh, I'm trading the markets. Now I can scale up." I don't see a problem with that either. I've done that a couple times on fast markets. What about you, coach?
Did you really pick up the dirt, coach?
No.
Okay.
No.
I love that example. Very
Yep.
good. Um, okay. Size up. It has to be consistent.
Yep.
So, like Coach Jay just said, his he wants to do 3 micros in that market, right?
Mhm.
You might use one, all right, initial buy and add to it and get an average, but those have to be pretty rapid, in my opinion. But it has to be consistent where you're not going. Like Coach said, he's three, but he adds three more. So have a base unit that you want to trade into, but because then you can get some consistency. If your size is inconsistent,
Yeah.
sooner or later you're going to get a roundhouse. Like,
Too many considerations to have to make and making a trading decision at the same time, right? It's like, okay, I know for the last trade I could have afforded one contract with this, but can I afford 5 contracts? Does that change the trade? Does that change where, my stop needs to go? Uh, yeah.
yeah,
I have a max allocation and I think work your way down from there instead of trying to say, hey, well, I'm just gonna my max allocation is 3, but this one is a 12 trade. It's like, whoa, where was that in your business plan?
good
Uh
example.
Last question. How do you see all the products on the quotes window? Did you add each one of them manually? Yes. I'm going to put in a request to maybe change that. But yeah, all of these, I just clicked add symbol, clicked and added one by one. Um, Make sure you save
Yeah,
it
once
because
you have them
that's
in
not.
there.
So I forgot to save the layout the first time I did it. I was not happy when I had to do it twice. So I make sure I just go up here and click this save layout every once in a while, you know, just for good luck.
Yes.
Uh, Coach, you got anything
True.
before we go? I'm gonna pull
Uh,
up my notes real quick just to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Uh, but any final words before we go, Coach?
um, as always, um, plan your trade, be consistent, execute your trade plan with the eye on managing your risk. Uh, That's, by the way, that's every day. So,
Every day.
um, and then good luck.
Awesome. And if you are ready and secure in your plan and you want to trade on Topstep TV and pass with the pros, fill out that link that I just put in the chat. We've had Stanley on, we had Keegan on. Um, and Stefan on as well. If you want to be the next trader to try to pass your combine on Topstep TV, make sure you fill out that form. Dolby's going to read it, and he said if it doesn't say if you didn't fill it out exactly how he wanted to, he's going to throw it out. So make sure you fill it out so Dolby doesn't throw out your request. We want to see you on Topstep TV. Uh, Outside of that, we have classes all the time. Coach Hoop is doing a class in about 12 minutes. I think Coach Hoop said he's going to start at 4:30 Central Time. That's going to be in Discord. And then we have Coach Ray at 6 p.m. Central Time in Discord, Coach Vince at 7, and of course Coach Dakota with Slow Markets at 7:30. I will be on Slow Markets with Coach Dakota tonight. Deanna with the London session at 3:30 Central Time every morning. Ton of content available for you. If you can't watch it all live, make sure you watch it on the recordings. Tell your friends and family to like and subscribe to Top Step channel if you like what you're hearing here. I got nothing else. We do have news tomorrow. Be aware of the news tomorrow. Don't have to trade in it. And if you're trading equities, you guys know what I'm going to do. I'm going to frame out that news candle, see if it presents opportunities to me. We have that jobless claims at 7:30 Central Time, so just be aware of that. I got nothing else, Coach.
Okay. Have a good evening or morning, wherever you may be, and trade well.
Trade well, manage your risk, and we will talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.
All right.